The funniest thing about lies is that they always expose the liar before they ever touch the one they're aimed at. My dear chosen ones, let that sink in. Because right now, there are people out there who thought they were setting you up for destruction, but what they've really done is put themselves on display. They thought they could paint you dirty, only to discover their own hands are stained with envy. They thought they could question your character and watch you crumble, but instead, the very people they questioned turned into your defenders. Imagine that. They tried to weaponize your name, and all they did was polish it until it shined brighter. This is the irony of being chosen. You don't have to chase validation, and you don't have to explain yourself to skeptics. Your life speaks for you. Your consistency speaks for you, and when people come searching for dirt, what they actually uncover is the quiet strength you've built over years. They expected mud, they found marble, they wanted cracks, they discovered steel, and that's why they're frustrated, because your reputation is not a fragile rumor, it's a fortress built brick by brick from every moment you've stayed true to who you are. Let me ask you this. Why do you think they keep trying to dig into your life? Why do they keep circling your name like vultures around a meal they can't quite reach? It's because your existence bothers them. Your light disturbs their shadows. Your strength reminds them of their weakness. They can't stand the fact that despite their whispers, you're still respected. Despite their envy, you're still elevated. And despite their attempts to pull you down, you keep standing taller. That's the power of being chosen. You don't even have to fight for your place. The world around you does it for you without you lifting a finger. Picture this. They walk into a room expecting a crowd ready to drag your name through the mud. They sharpen their knives, prepare their questions, and brace themselves to collect stories that would prove their suspicions. But as they open their mouths, something unexpected happens. Every person they ask has nothing but admiration to give. By the third compliment, they're already sweating. By the fifth testimony, they realize they're in the wrong meeting. And by the 10th, they're no longer prosecutors. They're accidental publicists writing the script of your greatness. That's how bad it backfires when someone tries to expose a chosen one. And here's the metaphor I want you to remember. When they came looking for skeletons in your closet, all they found was neatly folded laundry. That's the sting. They were so sure they'd uncover a mess, but instead they uncovered order. They were desperate to prove you a fraud, but all they proved was that their obsession says more about them than it does about you. Chosen ones, you need to hear this. The reason you're targeted is not because you're weak. It's because you're strong. It's not because you've failed. It's because you've succeeded in ways that make them uncomfortable. And it's not because you're fake. It's because you're so real that their illusions can't compete. People rarely hate what they don't notice. If they're spending their time asking about you, digging into your past and whispering your name, it's because you've left an imprint too heavy for them to ignore. Your presence alone is proof that you carry a weight they cannot lift. Chosen ones, before we move forward, I need to ask for your support. If this message is already hitting your spirit, then take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That simple action keeps us fueled to keep creating content that's not just words, but energy. Content that inspires, challenges, and uplifts you exactly when you need it. Your support is what allows us to keep pouring into you with life-changing messages like this. So hit that like button, subscribe, and let's keep building this movement together. Some of you might be wondering right now, why do they hate me so much when I haven't done anything to them? And that's the point. You don't have to. Envy doesn't need a reason. Jealousy doesn't wait for justification. They want you to be guilty of something so badly because it makes them feel better about their own shortcomings. But here's where it backfires. They can't find what doesn't exist. And the longer they look, the more foolish they appear. Let's flip the question back on them. Who spends their time running around asking about someone else's life unless they're obsessed? Who digs so deep for negativity except someone already drowning in their own bitterness? Every question they ask about you is really an answer about them. Their envy is the confession. Their persistence is the proof. Their desperation is the evidence. They wanted to expose you, but all they did was expose themselves. And the lesson in all of this, chosen ones, is that truth doesn't need defending. Reality doesn't bend to rumors. A solid reputation doesn't crumble at the sound of gossip. You've built something they cannot shake, no matter how hard they try. You didn't get here by accident. You didn't stumble into respect. You earned it with your consistency, your character, and the way you show up when no one is watching. That's what makes you untouchable. So let them keep asking. Let them keep searching. Let them exhaust themselves trying to prove a story that doesn't exist. Because in the end, the only people left looking foolish are the ones who thought they could bury truth with lies. Everyone they asked had nothing but praise for you. And now they feel stupid. They've turned themselves into the joke and you into the example. They wanted to drag your name down, but all they did was lift it higher. They thought they were closing your chapter, but all they did was write your legacy in bold. My dear chosen ones, never forget. When people come looking for dirt, it's only because they already feel buried by their own. And when they try to tarnish your name, they end up crowning it instead. That's not just poetic justice, it's the power of being chosen. And chosen ones, let me pause to say this, your presence here is no accident. Every view, every like, every subscription keeps this message alive and pushes it further into the world where it's needed most. If you've ever felt the sting of people questioning your name only to realize they walked away embarrassed, then you already know this message is for you. Show your support, smash that like button, subscribe, and drop a fire in the comments if you've ever watched enemies turn into accidental fans. And now, let's break this down step by step, because if you are truly chosen, you'll recognize these exact signs playing out in your own life. Ordinary people can't understand this. Only the chosen ones can. Let's get started. Number 1. The hunt for flaws became proof of strength. Their cross-examination became your standing ovation. When you go digging for flaws in someone who has lived with consistency, all you end up doing is digging your own grave. My dear chosen ones, listen closely, because this is one of the sweetest victories you'll ever witness in silence. They thought they were clever, thought they had built the perfect trap. They strutted in like interrogators, ready to put your character on trial. They armed themselves with questions, whispers, and doubt, convinced that if they pressed the right people, someone, somewhere, would finally say what they were desperate to hear. They imagined your story falling apart under the weight of their suspicion. But instead, what happened was far more humiliating for them. Because every door they knocked on, every ear they bent, and every mouth they questioned ended up serving them something they weren't prepared for. Praise. Not one flimsy compliment, not a polite shrug, but a consistent flood of testimony about your character. They expected to uncover a secret, but they uncovered a pattern. People speaking of you with respect, admiration, and confidence that couldn't be faked. The very interrogation they designed to discredit you turned into a standing ovation for you. That's the sting they didn't calculate. Chosen ones, have you noticed this? The louder someone insists on finding dirt on you, the more they accidentally shine a spotlight on your reputation. That's because truth doesn't need rehearsals. It doesn't need defense lawyers or staged speeches. It simply shows up. And in your case, it showed up again and again through every person they questioned. Imagine expecting a courtroom drama and instead walking into a documentary about resilience, consistency, and strength. That's the kind of reversal that makes enemies choke on their own bitterness. Let me give you a picture. They thought they were walking into a room where everyone would nod along and say, "Oh yes, we've been waiting to expose them." Instead, they walked into a room full of people who polished your crown instead of trying to knock it off. By the third compliment, their smile turned stiff. By the fifth, they started questioning whether they were even asking the right people. And by the 10th, they weren't investigators anymore. They were unintentional promoters of your character. My chosen ones, this is poetic justice. The trap they built became the stage where your reputation stood taller than ever. And I know what some of you are thinking right now, but what if someone exaggerates? What if people secretly dislike me and just aren't saying it out loud? That's the beauty of this moment. You don't need everyone to adore you. You don't even need perfection. What matters is the consistency of how you've lived. Over time, truth builds a pattern too strong to be broken. And that's exactly what they ran into. They weren't hearing scattered, half-hearted words. They were hearing a chorus, a repeated theme, a consensus so undeniable it crushed the very lies they wanted to spread. Chosen ones, this is why you never have to scramble to defend yourself. Let your life do the talking. Let the years of integrity, the moments when you chose right over easy, the times you stood firm when no one was watching, let all of that speak for you. Because when the day comes that someone tries to drag your name through the mud, those very moments will rise like witnesses on your behalf. And what could be more satisfying than watching your enemies realize too late that their attack only highlighted your strength? Think about this. They wanted to hold the gavel in the courtroom of public opinion. They wanted to slam it down and declare you guilty, but instead, the evidence kept stacking in your favor. And here's the part that really broke them. Your defense didn't come from your own mouth. You didn't beg, plead, or argue. You didn't have to. Other people did it for you, naturally, without being asked, because your life had already imprinted the truth on them. That's when envy turns to silence. Because nothing cuts deeper than realizing your smear campaign turned into someone else's applause. They came for exposure, but they ended up exposing themselves. They revealed their obsession, their desperation, and their bitterness. Meanwhile, you stood untouched, your name more credible than before. That's what happens when consistency meets envy. It's not the chosen ones who get embarrassed, it's the accusers. They thought they were going to rewrite your story, but your story had already been written too deeply into people's memories for them to erase. So, chosen ones, hold this close. When their interrogation turns into your confirmation, you don't just win. You win without lifting a finger. You rise without breaking a sweat. You walk away validated while they walk away exposed. That's the kind of victory only the chosen experience, because ordinary people don't attract this level of obsession. No one wastes energy interrogating the insignificant. They target you precisely because your presence is undeniable. And the best part? They're left to sit with the reality that their efforts backfired spectacularly. They wanted to break your credibility, but they stamped it instead. They wanted to tear you down, but they built you higher. They wanted to bury you, but in doing so, they uncovered the undeniable truth. You've been solid all along. My chosen ones, let this be your reminder. The world doesn't decide your worth. Your enemies don't dictate your reputation, and no interrogation can undo what a lifetime of integrity has built. That's why this moment is so powerful, because in their attempt to ruin you, they ended up proving you. And now, every time your name comes up, it carries weight. Not because you fought for it, but because the truth fought for you. Number 2. Compliments turned into their silent defeat. Their applause turned into a punishment they couldn't escape. The loudest silence is the kind that comes when your enemies realize everyone else sees you as the opposite of what they hoped. My chosen ones, this is where the sting really sets in. They thought they had a foolproof plan. They told themselves, surely someone somewhere must have a complaint about you. Surely there's at least one bitter memory waiting to confirm their suspicions. They moved with confidence, almost excited at the thought of unearthing a hidden grievance. But instead of complaints, what they kept bumping into was respect. Instead of whispers of scandal, they were met with testimonies of admiration, and every single time they tried to push their narrative, they were cornered by the same reality: praise. Now here's the irony. Praise is supposed to be uplifting. It's supposed to feel like a warm spotlight. But when you're the one holding envy in your chest, praise burns like fire. And that's exactly what happened to them. They wanted reassurance that their jealousy was valid, but all they got was evidence that it wasn't. Every compliment about you was a mirror reflecting their emptiness. Every story of your kindness was a reminder of their lack. Every affirmation of your strength became a silent punishment they couldn't ignore. Chosen ones, think about the humiliation of that moment. They asked questions expecting dirt, but every answer only polished your image brighter. They thought they were collecting weapons to use against you, but every word they gathered became a shield protecting you. That's the kind of poetic justice only life itself can deliver. Without lifting a finger, you turned their investigation into a confession of their own insecurity. You didn't beg anyone to defend you. You didn't rally support. The people they questioned spoke up naturally because your life had already imprinted itself on them. And that's the difference between a rumor and a reputation. A rumor needs to be pushed, spread, and forced into ears. But a reputation speaks for itself. When they came looking for reasons to hate you, they stumbled right into a library of reasons people respect you. That's why it hit them so hard. They weren't just proven wrong, they were proven irrelevant. Some of you might ask, but why did they believe they'd find complaints about me in the first place? And here's the truth, chosen ones. Envy always convinces people that their bitterness is universal. They project their jealousy onto others and assume everyone must secretly feel the same way they do. So when they started asking around, they expected nods of agreement, only to be smacked in the face with consistent testimonies of your value. Imagine how awkward that must have felt. Imagine thinking you're about to start a bonfire, only to discover the entire room is filled with water buckets ready to drown out every spark. And here's what cut them the deepest. It wasn't just that people spoke well of you. It was that the praise was consistent. It wasn't one polite word here and there. It wasn't exaggerated or rehearsed. It was steady. It was authentic. It was undeniable. That kind of uniform admiration is impossible to fake, and they knew it. The more they heard it, the more trapped they became. They didn't walk away reassured. They walked away humiliated, their plan backfiring so completely that it turned into punishment without anyone ever raising their voice against them. Chosen ones, remember this. When you've built a life of integrity, your very existence becomes untouchable. Even your silence speaks. Even your absence defends you. And when envy tries to drag your name into the mud, the people around you will naturally lift it higher because they've experienced the real you. That's why praise became their punishment. It wasn't praise you demanded, it was praise you earned. And that's the one thing they can't compete with. So let them feel the burn. Let them choke on the irony of their own plan. Because the more they tried to paint you as the problem, the clearer it became that the problem was never you. It was always them. They wanted condemnation, but instead they delivered celebration. They wanted to break you, but all they did was break their own illusion. And now, every time your name is mentioned, it won't echo their bitterness. It will echo the respect of those who know the truth. My dear chosen ones, this is the beauty of being set apart. Ordinary people crave validation. But you attract it without asking. And when envy tries to turn that into a weapon, it always snaps back on the hand that threw it. Praise became their silent punishment, and now they're the ones left sitting in the corner, looking foolish, while you stand taller than ever. Number 3. Empty hands exposed their true motives. The silence of scandal spoke louder than their lies. When enemies come searching for your flaws and return empty-handed, it's not your weakness that's revealed, it's their obsession. My dear chosen ones, this is where the story gets delicious. They were convinced that if they just dug deep enough, pressed the right people, or asked the right questions, they'd find something, anything they could use to tear you down. They wanted evidence, not truth. They weren't looking for clarity, they were hunting for scandal. But what they didn't prepare for was the silence that came back to meet them. No gossip, no dirt, no skeletons rattling in your closet, just empty hands and a mirror reflecting their own desperation. Think about that for a second. They set out with notebooks ready to jot down every ugly word, ready to collect receipts they could use to paint you as a fraud. But instead of receipts, they walked away with nothing but the embarrassment of realizing the problem wasn't you at all, it was them. Because chosen ones, silence speaks louder than slander. The absence of dirt becomes the loudest testimony of your strength. Let's be clear, you're not perfect, and you've never claimed to be. You're human, but you've lived with enough consistency that your mistakes don't define you, and your actions have always been rooted in something solid. That's why even those who don't particularly like you can't find real ammunition to use against you. They wanted proof of hypocrisy, but all they uncovered was integrity. They wanted scandal, but all they saw was stability. And here's the kicker. Every time they failed, it didn't frustrate you. It frustrated them. Chosen ones, here's a question to ask yourself. Why are they so obsessed with finding flaws in you in the first place? Why waste so much energy digging into your life? Because deep down, they believe that your presence threatens their comfort. Your light irritates their shadows. They can't just let you stand tall. They need you to bend so they feel taller. But the beauty of your life is this. You've lived in a way that left them with nothing to exploit. So their own obsession became the scandal, and others noticed it too. The more they asked around, the more people started questioning them. Why are you so invested in tearing this person down? Why are you so eager to find something negative? That's the irony. They thought the spotlight would be on you, but it shifted back onto them. Their questions exposed their envy. Their persistence betrayed their agenda. They weren't chasing truth. They were chasing destruction, and everyone else could see it. Picture them pacing, trying to convince themselves they just hadn't asked the right person yet, just hadn't dug deep enough. But every door they knocked on gave the same answer: respect, admiration, consistency. Imagine their faces as silence became the only response they got. That silence didn't protect you, it exposed them, because it shouted the one thing they didn't want to admit. The darkness they were searching for was never in you. It was in them. Chosen ones, that's the power of living authentically. You don't have to be flawless to be untouchable. You only need to be genuine. When you live in such a way that your words and actions align, when your character is the same in the spotlight as it is in the shadows, you strip your enemies of ammunition. They can whisper, but they can't prove. They can hate, but they can't expose, and that's what drives them mad. At some point, they had to sit with the embarrassment of realizing that their failure wasn't accidental. It was inevitable. Because the truth is, your life doesn't leave the cracks they were hoping to exploit. You're not perfect, but you're consistent. You're not flawless, but you're real. And in a world where so many people fold under pressure, that kind of consistency is rare. it's unshakable, and it's infuriating for anyone who wants to see you fall. So, in the end, their search backfired. What they couldn't find spoke louder than anything they hoped to uncover. Their obsession raised more eyebrows than your actions ever did, and now they're left exposed, petty, desperate, and red-faced, while you stand taller, validated not by your own defense, but by the undeniable absence of scandal. My chosen ones, remember this: silence can be your loudest ally. When enemies go digging and come up empty, the emptiness becomes proof of your strength. They wanted to find dirt, but they unearthed their own envy. They wanted to stain your name, but all they did was spotlight their own weakness. And now the world sees the truth. Everyone they asked had nothing but praise for you, and they're the ones who walked away looking stupid. Number 4, being trusted hit harder than being liked. They discovered you're not just liked, you're trusted. Being liked is a handshake. Being trusted is a lifetime contract. My dear chosen ones, this is where the whole game shifts. People can like anyone. They can like a stranger at a party, someone who makes them laugh for a moment, or someone who says the right thing at the right time. But trust? Trust is a different league entirely. Trust doesn't come cheap. It doesn't arrive overnight. It doesn't get handed out like candy. Trust is earned the hard way, through consistency, through character, and through the kind of moments most people never see. And when your enemies went snooping, trying to pull flimsy opinions that would make you look small, they stumbled into something they didn't expect. They didn't find shallow, "Oh yeah, they're nice" comments. They found loyalty. They found conviction. They found trust. Chosen ones, this is the moment that makes their stomach turn, because trust is ironclad. It isn't built on charm or image. It's built on patterns. It's built on the times you kept your word when no one else was paying attention. It's built on the little decisions where your actions matched your values. Over time, that becomes something no rumor can erase. And when people were asked about you, they didn't respond with flimsy surface-level remarks. They spoke with a fire in their voice, as if they were protecting your name in your absence. That's when your enemies realized they weren't fighting against gossip. They were fighting against history. Think of it like this: being liked is like standing on sand. One strong wave of rumor can wash it away. But being trusted, that's like standing on concrete. The waves crash, the storms rage, but the foundation doesn't move. And when the people around you began to speak, that's what they revealed: that your foundation is stronger than any story your enemies could ever try to spin. Now let me ask you, chosen ones, who would vouch for them? If their name got questioned, if their character got put on trial, who would stand up with conviction and testify for them? Who would defend them without hesitation? The silence answers the question. Because while they may have followers, while they may have people who laugh with them or hang around for the show, very few would put their reputation on the line to defend theirs. And that's the painful difference. They can generate noise, but you've built trust, and noise fades. Trust lasts. What crushed them wasn't just hearing people speak well of you, it was the consistency of it. Over and over, different people from different walks of life, all saying the same thing: dependable, solid, real. That kind of testimony can't be faked, can't be purchased, and can't be manipulated. It has weight, it has substance, it has roots. And once it's spoken out loud, it stamps your name with credibility that nothing and no one can erase. They thought people's opinions of you were shallow enough to be swayed by whispers. They thought if they sprinkled in doubt, others would latch onto it. But instead, they encountered something unshakable. People didn't just like you, they trusted you. And when trust is present, no amount of poison can infect it, because trust is based on evidence, personal experience, real moments, living proof. and people had too much evidence of who you really are to be convinced otherwise. Here's the sting they can't escape. They don't have that. They've built images, facades, and noise, but not credibility. They may be surrounded by people, but who would risk their own reputation to protect theirs? Who would speak with conviction that they are reliable, consistent, and true? That silence is deafening, and it's the silence that separates them from you. So, chosen ones, hold this truth close. Being liked is easy, being trusted is rare, and when the reports came back about you, what they heard wasn't fluff, it wasn't small talk, it was testimony, real, heavy, undeniable testimony. People didn't just say you're pleasant, they vouched for you. They put weight on your name, and that kind of respect, it can't be faked, copied, or stolen. It's the reward of living steady, of showing up the same way whether eyes are on you or not. They wanted to discredit you, but instead they stumbled into the credibility they could never manufacture for themselves. They thought they'd weaken your name, but they handed it more strength than it had before. And now they're left feeling foolish, because the truth is, they've built their world on temporary approval, but you've built yours on permanent trust. And when trust speaks, lies don't stand a chance. Number 5. Their script collapsed in front of everyone. Their script collapsed under the spotlight. The problem with lies is they sound convincing in private, until the truth drags them into the open and leaves them naked. My dear chosen ones, there's something almost poetic about watching an enemy choke on their own script. They thought they had it all figured out. They sat behind closed doors rehearsing their lines, replaying their accusations, and convincing themselves that once they stepped into the light, the world would nod in agreement. In their heads, you were already the villain, the arrogant one, the fake one, the person everyone secretly disliked but hadn't yet dared to expose. They thought the crowd was just waiting for someone bold enough to start the story, and they believed they were going to be the hero of that performance. But here's the part they never anticipated. When the curtain finally lifted, their play had no audience. They threw their lines into the air and expected applause, but what came back was confusion. People didn't nod. They frowned. People didn't pile on. They pushed back. And every word that spilled from your enemies' mouths was contradicted by someone else who had lived the truth of who you are. Instead of whispers of scandal, there was admiration. Instead of confirmation of their lies, there was testimony of your strength. Instead of a chorus of bitterness, there was a chorus of respect. And just like that, the carefully built script they'd been holding on to crumbled in public view. Chosen ones, this is where the power lies, because it's one thing for someone to believe their lies in private, but it's another thing entirely when they step out into the world and those lies collapse under the weight of your reputation. It's humiliating in a way they can't recover from. You see, when someone is proven wrong behind the scenes, they can still protect their pride. But when they're proven wrong in public, when their script disintegrates in front of witnesses, their credibility doesn't just crack, it shatters. Every word they try to spin afterward is stained by that exposure. Let me ask you, why did they think they could pull it off in the first place? Because they underestimated you. They mistook your humility for weakness. They assumed your silence meant fragility. They believed your reputation was thin enough to be rewritten by a few well-placed rumors. But here's what they didn't factor in. The years you've spent building consistency, every honest interaction, every moment you showed integrity, every time you chose to be steady rather than spiteful, that built a foundation so strong that no lie could shake it. And when they tried to tell a story that didn't match what people already knew, the mismatch was too obvious to ignore. Imagine them standing there, delivering their accusations like actors reading from a script, waiting for cheers, only to hear the audience say, "That doesn't sound right." Imagine the burn of realizing that instead of convincing others, they just convinced everyone of their bitterness. That's what happened. The narrative they tried to write didn't just fail, it backfired. And in the process, they weren't exposed as mistaken. They were exposed as manipulators, as storytellers who tried to force a fiction into existence. That's a stain you can't wash off easily. And here's the beauty, chosen ones. You didn't have to step in. You didn't have to interrupt, argue, or defend yourself. You didn't have to explain or justify. You simply kept standing in the truth you've always lived, and others spoke on your behalf without you even asking. Your authenticity has been so consistent, so undeniable, that it wrote a story stronger than any script they could manufacture. That's why the collapse was so loud. Because no one can overwrite a narrative that's already written in people's hearts. This is why you must never fear when they start whispering, when they start rehearsing their lies. Let them talk. Let them prepare their monologues, because when they finally present it, the truth you've lived will interrupt them mid-sentence. The goodwill you've built over time will dismantle their performance, and the respect you've earned will outshine their bitterness every single time. So yes, chosen ones, their script fell apart in public. They walked in thinking they had the power to expose you, and they walked out exposed themselves. They believed they were holding the pen to write your downfall, but all they managed to do was scribble their own embarrassment into the story. And you? You walked away taller, stronger, and validated, not because you fought, but because your truth stood up for you louder than any defense ever could. Remember this, when lies collapse, they collapse hard. And when they do, the only people left looking foolish are the ones who thought they could rewrite the truth. Everyone they asked had nothing but praise for you, and now they feel stupid. Number 6. United voices buried every lie. The weight of consensus crushed their lies. A single voice can be dismissed as bias, but when every voice tells the same story, denial becomes delusion. My dear chosen ones, this is where envy takes its hardest hit, not in whispers, not in rumors, but in the collective force of truth. One person speaking well of you could have been brushed aside. They could have said, "Oh, that's just a friend being loyal." 2 or 3 people praising you could have been written off as favoritism. But what happens when it's not 2, not 3, but everyone? What happens when every door they knocked on echoed the same undeniable truth about who you are? That's when the weight of consensus crushed their lies. They were banking on division. They thought, if we ask enough people, someone will slip. Someone will bring up a grudge. Someone will finally spill the negativity we need. But chosen ones, that's the mistake they made, assuming your life left behind enemies instead of evidence. What they actually found was a pattern too solid to be ignored. The voices didn't hesitate. The answers didn't wobble. People vouched for you with clarity and confidence. And each word, each testimony was another stone stacking up against their fragile lies. Imagine their faces. With every response they heard, the ground under them sank lower. They had been rehearsing the narrative in their heads, convinced they would gather proof to support it. But instead, the responses were so consistent, so unified, that their story suffocated under its own weakness. Their imagination could not survive the pressure of reality. Chosen ones, let me paint this picture. A rumor is like a thin thread, easy to start but easier to snap. It relies on hesitation, on doubt, on the possibility that people might lean one way or the other. But a reputation built on years of integrity, that's not a thread, that's a fortress wall. And when they tried to hurl their weak stones of gossip against it, all they managed to do was break their own hands. That's the power of a consensus. It's not one voice fighting for you. It's the collective verdict of everyone who has crossed your path and seen your consistency for themselves. And you know what hurt them the most? It wasn't just that people defended you, it was the unanimity of it. There was no crack for them to crawl into, no bitter voice to lean on, no ally to prop up their lie. Every person they asked became another witness against them, and with each answer, their shame grew heavier. Because chosen ones, when the truth isn't scattered but repeated with unity, the liar doesn't just look wrong, they look delusional. You see, this wasn't just about proving you right, it was about proving them foolish in front of others. Because it's one thing to be wrong in private, but to be exposed in public, to have your false narrative shattered in real time, and for everyone to see that you've been peddling lies, that's humiliation on another level. Their credibility didn't just take a hit, it dissolved piece by piece, until there was nothing left to stand on. Chosen ones, here's the lesson. You don't have to fight lies with noise. You fight them with consistency. Because when your reputation has been built brick by brick, lie after lie crumbles under its weight. And let's be clear, you didn't build this consensus by campaigning for approval. You built it by living, by showing up day after day, true to yourself, by handling moments of pressure with integrity, by treating people with the kind of respect that sticks in their memory. That's why the consensus is so heavy. It wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't forced, it was earned. Now ask yourself, why do you think this crushed them so hard? Because when you're the one holding the lie, the last thing you want is everyone else holding the truth. They wanted whispers in the corner, not a choir in the open. But when the testimonies about you became a chorus, their lies didn't just look small, they disappeared. So, chosen ones, never underestimate the force of a consistent life. One rumor can be loud for a moment, but it can't survive against the steady beat of truth repeated over and over again. That's why you stand untouchable. That's why their attempts to smear you ended with them looking like the odd ones out, completely disconnected from reality. In the end, they didn't just lose the battle. They lost their credibility. They weren't exposed as simple critics. They were exposed as bitter, envious, and out of touch with what everyone else already knew. Your name carries weight, and their lies never stood a chance against the gravity of the truth. Number 7. Where they expected cracks, they found steel. They went searching for cracks, but only found stone. The cruelest part about envy is realizing the person you're trying to break has already survived storms you couldn't last 5 minutes in. Chosen ones, let's talk about the moment they thought they had you cornered. In their minds, it was inevitable. Everyone has a weak spot, right? Everyone has a secret mistake, a skeleton hiding just out of sight. They were convinced that if they pressed long enough, asked enough questions, or poked around in your past, they would uncover something ugly, something they could use as ammunition to finally watch you crumble. To them, you were a puzzle they thought they could crack, a facade they were sure would fall apart under pressure. But here's where reality hit them like a brick wall. The deeper they searched, the less they found. They weren't uncovering cracks, they were running into steel. They weren't discovering dirt. They were tripping over evidence of resilience, kindness, and wisdom. The very places where they expected weakness were the same places where your strength shouted the loudest. That's what shook them to their core. Their entire plan was built on the assumption that you were secretly just like them, messy, bitter, and fragile behind the mask. But the evidence refused to align. And chosen ones, that's the difference between you and them. When people talk about you, they don't recall scandals or bitterness. They remember the way you handled adversity without breaking. They remember the patience you carried in chaos. They remember how you treated others with compassion instead of arrogance. They remember the wisdom you left them with, lessons that stayed long after you walked out of the room. That is the trail you've left behind. Not a trail of broken promises and failures, but a trail of strength built brick by brick, moment by moment, decision by decision. So when they tried to pull your reputation down, all they did was lift you higher. Every story people told about you only cemented your consistency. Every testimony they heard only magnified your integrity. The weakness they went hunting for didn't exist. Instead, they stumbled into the kind of strength that cannot be faked. And that's what made it unbearable for them, because weakness can masquerade as strength for a moment. But true strength, the kind that endures storms and pressure, cannot be counterfeited. Chosen ones, let me put it this way. When steel is tested by fire, it doesn't break, it hardens. And your life has been that steel. You've been through fires that should have destroyed you, but instead, they shaped you. And the people who envy you can't stand that. Because while you've been busy becoming stronger, they've been busy avoiding the very challenges that would have built them. Truth, discipline, humility. Those are the ingredients of real strength. And those are the exact qualities they've spent their lives running from. That's why their frustration cuts so deep. It's not just that you don't have scandals to expose, it's that your resilience is a mirror reflecting everything they lack. Your calm under pressure exposes their chaos. Your compassion exposes their bitterness. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Every time they tried to point out weakness in you, they were forced to look at weakness in themselves. And nothing humiliates an enemy more than realizing the very qualities they wanted to use against you are the same ones they'll never have the courage to cultivate in their own lives. Think about how much it stings for them. They walked in expecting to uncover evidence of your downfall, but instead, they uncovered evidence of your evolution. They thought they'd dig up your collapse, but all they found was your climb. They wanted to hold up your flaws as proof, but all they ended up holding was their own envy. And that's why now, when they look at you, they feel smaller. Because you've become the living reminder that strength isn't loud or flashy, it's steady, proven, and undeniable. Chosen ones, never forget this. What they thought would be your downfall became their exposure. Their obsession with finding weakness only highlighted your strength. Their failure to break you left them broken. And while they're stuck frustrated, you're walking taller, not because you fought them, but because you've been true to yourself all along. So the next time they come digging, let them. Let them waste their time searching for cracks in a foundation that's already weathered storms, because in the end, they won't find weakness. They'll only find proof that you are exactly what they feared you were all along: solid, unshakable, and chosen. Number 8. Their questions revealed more about them than you. Their questions turned the spotlight on themselves. The more someone talks about you, the more they tell the world about themselves. My dear chosen ones, this is where the irony cuts the deepest. They thought they were smart. They thought they had crafted a foolproof plan. Ask the right questions, plant the right doubts, and let the answers build the case against you. In their minds, it was simple. A little curiosity here, a subtle whisper there, and soon enough the picture of you would start to crumble. But what they didn't see coming was how obvious their own obsession would look. Because here's the truth. When people are steady, they don't spend their days dissecting someone else's life. When people are secure, they don't keep circling around your name like it's the only thing that gives their day purpose. The more they kept asking, the more everyone else started wondering, why are you so invested? Why are you digging this deep? Why does this person's name live rent-free in your head? Instead of exposing you, they ended up exposing themselves. Chosen ones, this is the power of being consistent. You don't even have to defend yourself. Your life has already done the work. So when someone tries to poke holes in it, people don't see flaws in you. They see insecurity in the one holding the needle. And the harder they press, the more transparent their intentions become. Their questions didn't sound like genuine concern. They sounded like envy in disguise. They sounded like resentment wrapped in fake curiosity. And people caught on quickly. Picture it. They walk into a room acting like investigators, expecting nods of agreement and scandalous secrets. But instead of hearing dirt on your name, they hear admiration. Instead of whispers of complaint, they hear testimonies of trust. And as each answer contradicts their narrative, the audience in the room starts turning their gaze, not toward you, but toward the person asking. Suddenly, it's not, "What did the chosen one do?" It's, "Why are you so desperate to tear them down?" That shift is fatal to their plan, because once people sense jealousy, the game is over. Let me ask you this, chosen ones, have you ever noticed how jealousy has a sound? You can hear it in someone's tone. You can feel it in the way their questions linger too long on your name. It doesn't feel like curiosity. It feels like fixation. That's what betrayed them. Their own voice gave them away. Their persistence made it undeniable. They weren't chasing truth. They were chasing a takedown that didn't exist. And that's when the tables turned. The spotlight they tried to shine on you swung back onto them, and it was blinding. People who would have stayed neutral couldn't help but notice the cracks in their act. Their supposed concern looked more like obsession. Their questions weren't framed with care, they dripped with envy. And just like that, the hunter became the hunted. The one asking the questions became the one under investigation. Chosen ones, that's the beauty of living in authenticity. You don't have to chase rumors or silence doubters. Their own actions betray them faster than you ever could. The more they pressed, the smaller they looked. The more they tried to expose, the more their own insecurity crawled out into the open. Instead of making you look guilty, they made themselves look desperate. Instead of finding flaws in your character, they exposed the cracks in their own. Think about it. If someone has to work this hard to try and bring you down, doesn't that already prove how high you're standing? Doesn't that already scream how unshakable you've become? Ordinary people don't attract this level of obsession. Only the chosen ones do. Only those who carry a presence too strong to ignore end up being questioned this way. And when the questioning backfires, as it always does, it leaves your enemies humiliated while you remain untouched. In the end, their interrogation wasn't your exposure, it was theirs. Every word they spoke told on them. Every question they asked revealed their jealousy. Every attempt to discredit you painted them as petty, bitter, and desperate. And that's the part they can't undo. They thought they were putting you on trial, but the verdict was already written. They were the ones guilty of envy. So, chosen ones, carry this with you. When people question your life, don't panic, don't scramble. Don't feel the need to explain yourself, because the louder they question, the more obvious it becomes that you're the one worth questioning in the first place. And that's their confession, not your downfall. Everyone they asked had nothing but praise for you, and now they feel stupid. Their questions turned into their own exposure, and you walked away with your reputation intact, your presence validated, and your power confirmed. Number 9. Your reputation walked into the room before you did. They ran face first into your invisible reputation. A reputation built over years doesn't shout. It walks into the room before you and silences every lie. My dear chosen ones, this one is powerful because it reveals something your enemies will never understand until it's too late. They came for you with gossip, whispers, and schemes. They thought your reputation was fragile, something they could chip away at with one rumor or one strategic lie. But what they didn't realize is that you were already 10 steps ahead, not because you were plotting, but because your life had already spoken for you long before they opened their mouths. You see, chosen ones, there's something called the invisible reputation. It's the one you don't advertise, the one you don't brag about, the one you don't even have to post about. It's the silent trail you leave behind through years of consistency, kindness, resilience, and authenticity. It's what people remember from the times you weren't trying to impress them. Those ordinary moments where your actions revealed your true character. That invisible reputation was walking into the room before you, shaping how people saw you, protecting your name before anyone even tried to question it. So when they launched their little smear campaign, thinking they could rewrite your story, they didn't realize they weren't fighting against gossip, they were fighting against history, and history, chosen ones, cannot be erased. People already had a library of memories with you. They remembered the times you showed up when no one else did. They recalled the way you treated them with respect when you didn't have to. They carried impressions from years of watching how you carry yourself, and those impressions were too strong to be dismantled by a whisper. Think of it like this. They tried to spray graffiti on a wall that had already been carved from stone. The respect you've earned wasn't painted on. It was etched deep, reinforced by time and tested by storms. That's why their attacks bounced off so easily. They were throwing pebbles at a fortress, and all they did was make noise. They thought one rumor could undo years of truth. But truth doesn't work that way. Truth has roots. Lies are weeds, temporary and shallow. And here's the part that stung them the most. People had already made up their minds about you. The decision was done long before your enemies ever tried to enter the picture. So when the lies came, they didn't plant doubt. They triggered suspicion, but not toward you, toward the ones spreading them. Because people thought, wait a minute, I know this person. I've seen how they move. I've watched their consistency. This rumor doesn't match what I've seen with my own eyes. That's the shield of the invisible reputation. It doesn't argue. It doesn't defend. It just stands, unshakable, while lies fall apart around it. Chosen ones. This is why you must never underestimate the quiet work of integrity. Every small decision to stay real, every time you choose respect over pettiness, every time you act with consistency, it's not wasted. It builds that invisible armor, the kind no smear campaign can break through. That's why when they came for you, they ended up looking foolish. They weren't battling just your name. They were battling the collective memory of everyone who had ever experienced you in truth. And against that, they never stood a chance. Ask yourself this. Why do they keep failing every time they try to bring you down? It's because their attacks are new, shallow, and desperate. Your reputation, on the other hand, is seasoned, tested, and undeniable. They're trying to fight a single moment against a lifetime, and that's a war they can't win. What burns them is knowing that your reputation doesn't need defending. It's already defended by the lived experiences of countless people. It's already carried by the trust you've earned and the way you've shown up in moments that mattered. That's something they can't manufacture for themselves, no matter how hard they try. And every failed attempt to destroy you just reinforces the fact that your standing is untouchable. So yes, chosen ones, they ran face first into your invisible reputation. They wanted to smear your name, but instead they smeared their own credibility. They wanted to plant doubt, but instead they planted suspicion about their motives. They thought they were going to dismantle you, but instead they discovered that your foundation is too solid to be shaken. Remember this, a true reputation doesn't need to scream. It doesn't need to beg for approval. It doesn't chase validation. It walks quietly, but it speaks loudly when it's tested. And when they came to test yours, they realized too late. It was never fragile to begin with. That's why, in the end, everyone they asked had nothing but praise for you. And now, with their schemes shattered and their credibility in ruins, they're the ones left looking stupid. And that, chosen ones, is the beauty of truth. It doesn't need to shout, it simply stands, while lies collapse under their own weight. Every attempt to question you only stamped your name with more respect. And now the ones who came against you are left looking foolish. If this message spoke to you, show your support. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments so I know my chosen ones are here. Share this with someone who needs reminding. Respect built on truth can't be destroyed.